Make the ground shake.
What's up everyone, and this is part 2 of my 3-part preview of the new British tank destroyers which are going to come in update 2.1. So in this part we're going to have the tier 5, 6 and 7, mainly the 82, the 88 and the 87. So let's take a look at the stats. Okay, so let's start off with the 82 at tier 5. So this is where the British tank destroyers take a massive hole and then they gain some really good armor as well. And this is where it starts. Back at tier 5 we have the 82 and armor is insane. 203mm frontally, 101 to the sides and rear, and it also gets a lot of health to back it up. This is a trend in the British tank destroyers. They'll typically get a lot of health for their tier, even matching some mediums or heavies. Okay, so here we are in Armor Inspector, taking a look at its armor in a bit more detail, and as you're seeing, it's basically impenetrable for nearly every single tier 5 really, unless you aim at a weak spot, which is either the mantlet, which is actually, you'll probably be quite surprised by that, but it is a weak spot. And yeah, and you've got the hatch there, which is like 80mm or so. The sides, you want to be firing at the superstructure of the tank because the tracks are pretty well armored as well, so you may bounce, and you see if you angle it even a little it will bounce. So, but it is a small target, the superstructure, so you should be careful and aim your shot. In the rear you can just penetrate anyway, so even with a bit of angling this thing is still impenetrable. But against like tier 6 and 7 tanks, let's have a look to see a tier 6 gun that we can use, like the KV-1S's 122. And still, it's pretty hard to penetrate this tank unless you're aiming at the weak spots. I mean, that little part there between the lower plate and the upper plate is technically penetrable, but if you do angle it a bit, it will be very hard to penetrate. And you can see you can penetrate the sides and the rear pretty easily now with the KV-1S's top gun, but HE won't work. In here, it's angled and it's now 160mm effective. I mean, I think the front. The weak spot is 101, but this thing can even bounce tier 7s when angled properly. So let's just get up like the T29's gun up and have a look whether it can penetrate it or not. Okay, so you can see it's a lot easier than the KV-1S's because the T29 has almost 200mm of penetration, but even then, with angling, it's very hard to penetrate the upper and lower front plates. But the superstructure isn't really a problem as long as you're looking at a flat side. So even tier 7s have problem with this thing, so you can see it's obviously got very good armor for its tier. Now let's take a look at the firepower of the tank. So the 82's top gun is a 6-pounder. This is the one I recommend you use because look at that rate of fire, 16.36 rounds a minute. So you'll be getting a shot at every 3.5 or so seconds. The average penetration with the AP is 110, which is actually the worst penetration of the tier 5 TDs. And with APCR it's 180, which is insane, but you won't really ever need. Now the downside of this gun is the low alpha damage. I mean, as you hopefully saw in my previous video, the 6-pounder guns are found down at tier 2, so 90 damage isn't really that much, but with 16 rounds a minute you're getting at least probably around 1450 damage per minute, which is insanely pretty good. So the accuracy is 0.37, which is pretty bad actually for British tank destroyers, and the aim time is an amazing 1.7 seconds. So you'll be aimed at your target before you're reloaded, which is a really good thing in this tank. Also the same derp from the Electo here at the 82, and I definitely don't recommend you use it because it's just the same. It's got awful HE penetration. I mean, pretty good heat damage, but I don't think it's worth it when you've got a gun like the 6-pounder on this tank. So the 82 has armor. Well, You're not obviously going to expect this thing to be fast, and in fact it's not, it's very, very slow. So this thing weighs 41.5 tons, which is very heavy for tier 2, it's actually pretty heavy for a TD, I'd say. 395 horsepower engine and 20 km speed limit, and I don't think that's a very good horsepower to ton ratio, and it's not really going to get you much to your slow speed, but I could be wrong, so I'm not really sure how to calculate horsepower per ton. Reverse speed is also 20 degrees a second, so all I'm going to say is just make sure you have teammates around you that can stop mediums from trying to flank you, and therefore killing you. So what this basically means is that you're going to be pretty slow getting into the action of a fight, especially on maps like Black Goldville and Winter Malinowska. You're probably going to be the last one to the main fight, either on the windmill or probably to the caves on Black Goldville. And yeah, but once you're there, you can take the hits for your team, deal a lot of damage with that fast rate of fire. And the thing is, you've got to know where the weak spots are for tanks because of your poor penetration, or alternatively you can just switch to premium armor. Okay, so up next we basically have the 88, it's the tier 6 British tank destroyer, and again, going through the trend, it's got the armor, it's slow, it's got no speed, and the gun is pretty decent, I'd say. Okay, so the 88 has 1000 health, and it has the exact same armor layout as the 82 at tier 5, but its armor at tier 6 is still very, very good. There's nothing that can penetrate you frontally if we're looking at on paper, because 203, I don't think any tank at tier... Oh no, the Churchill gun carrier can, but no one plays that thing. So yeah, 203, that's very good for tier 6. Let's take a look how it is in armoring spectrum, what the weak spots are. Okay, so basically this thing has two massive bulging weak spots. One is the gun, the little mini gun there, which anyone can penetrate. It's like 60mm thick. No tank will have problems with that you face. And the other is the cupola, which is actually harder to penetrate than the little minigun. So if an 88 is facing you frontally, just aim at the minigun and you'll almost certainly penetrate. So a tier 7 will have less problems penetrating you, but they'll still have problems frontally at least. I mean, if you're looking at like the front like this, it's still hard to penetrate the part next to the gun, but the cupola, the weak spots are easier to penetrate. And if you're looking at this tank with a tier 8 like the IS-3, then you'll have absolutely no problems whatsoever. You'll probably bounce a shot if the person driving the 88 is actually smart enough to angle, but most of the time you just won't have any problem with this thing, and it's even slow, and so slow that you can just circle it and kill it like that. So as you'd expect, the 88 is also very slow. It's pretty heavy as well, 41.88 tons, 410 horsepower engine, which isn't really going to do much for a 41 ton tank. And the speed limit is also the awful 20 kilometers, and the traverse speed is the same 20 kilometers. Now, this thing really isn't that much different from the 82 armor and speed wise, I don't think. The gun is very, very different. The gun is a 17 pounder 80 gun. It's got 171mm of penetration, which is exactly what you want to be seeing at tier 6. That's really good. And the premium ammunition is 239mm of penetration. That's insane. You can go through almost all tier 8s. You've got 160 average damage with the AP and APCR, 200 with the HE, 0.3. The massive bump up from the 82's 0.37, I believe, and the amazing aim time of 1.7 seconds. That gun is insanely good. Rate of fire is 10.68, which is also very good. It means you can keep targets permanently tracked if you choose, but one thing I've noticed is the gun elevation is absolutely awful on this tank. It's 8 degrees. I mean, this is really painful because it's just bad. You can't see like this. I can't aim up at this Panther barely. I can barely do that. I wouldn't be able to aim up at the Tiger. I'd have to go forward, and yeah, I hate tanks with terrible gun elevation. Like the AMX 5120 on PC, I didn't like because of this. And yeah, this is going to be a problem. And the gun depression is -5 as well, which isn't great. Finally, at tier 7 we have the AT7. I find this a really weird tank because one, it looks really weird. I mean, you'll see why in a minute, but oh, I hate it because it looks ugly. And two, I mean, this is where it actually the armor starts to become more irrelevant. As tanks get higher penetration, your armor means less. It still means something, but it doesn't mean as much as the previous tiers. So let's take a look at it. So this is kind of what I meant. Look at how ugly it is frontally. The gun is literally to the right. So, but anyway, let's go to the armor. So 1250 health, that's as much as a T29, so it's got heavy standards of hit points as a tank destroyer, which is unusual. And again, the exact same layout as its two other predecessors, 203 frontally, 101 sides and rear. So, but the thing is, this thing has a different look, so the armor will be different. So we'll just take a look at armor inspector now for that. It's safe to say tier 7s have problems with this tank, penetrating this tank, as will any tier 5s or 6s, but tier 8s won't have much of a problem unless you angle. That's the main thing. You have to angle, you have to wiggle your tank, you know, to prevent them from being able to aim at weak spots and stuff. And this thing also has like -5 gun depression, I think, and the same awful -8 gun elevation. This tank is also pretty slow. I mean, it's got a better engine, 500 horsepower, but the same weight as, more or less the same weight as the others. 20 km/h speed limit and 22 traverse speed, 22 degrees traverse speed, which is an improvement, but not much. Finally, the gun of the tank, we get a 20-pounder. It's absolutely insane, I'd say. 11.93 rounds a minute is really good. 226mm of penetration is also amazing with 258 premium. That's tier 9 standards of premium APCR and tier 8 standards of just normal penetration. HE penetration is 42, the average damage is 190 for the AP and APCR shells and 250 for the HE, with an amazing accuracy of 0.31 and a very good aim time of 2.1. It's bad compared to the ATA, which gets 1.7, but 2.1 is still very good. Gun compared to the other tier 7 tank destroyers is amazing. It does get less alpha damage, but it gets a lot more DPM. The highest penetration at tier 7. Yep, the highest penetration at tier 7 in Blitz currently. I'm probably wrong, but I'm hoping I'm right. And yeah, just the rate of fire is insane. The accuracy, this gun is just amazing. Anyway, that was the end of the video. You're probably going to realize it feels a bit rushed, and that's because it is, because I have school in the next few days and a lot of stuff to do. So I honestly just had to rush this, and yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you're new, leave a like if you enjoyed, and bye.